Python as a programming language is gaining its popularity day by day, and the Python Software Foundation is making all efforts to make sure that the language is coders friendly. And in that series, they have introduced something called data classes in Python from version 3.7 and onwards. And in this particular video, we are going to look into data classes in Python. So data classes are not introducing any new functionality in the language. It's just a simpler, neat, and clear way of writing the code so that it's easy to look into, easy to maintain, easy to understand. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what are data classes and how we can make use of it. So to properly explain data classes in Python, I need to show you some examples. So let's assume that I have created a class called info and I am taking two parameters in init function and creating instance variables called info ID and info description. And this is how we instantiate a class. We all know this. If we want to use standard function, we can use it, but we will get default output because we haven't overwritten it. Same is for REPR also. Okay. And if we go ahead and see dict representation of it, yeah, we get info ID as well as info description. All of us know this, but how does data classes come into picture? So data classes makes these things a bit simpler, bit easier. Okay. So to use data classes, you need to import data class from data classes. Okay. And you use data class as a decorator. So in the same class info, I am creating two variable info ID, info description, and I'm adding this decorator called data class. Okay. So this is the way I use data class. You can immediately see the difference. I haven't created any init function over here. I haven't created self.instance variables. Okay. So just by writing these 2-3 lines, it's very clear, very simple, and we can use it the same way we have used our earlier info class by passing two parameters, which is 12. This is current information. And if we go ahead and see the dict representation, you can see info ID and info description is there. Okay. And not only this, it will automatically override tender function str and repr. So if you use str and repr, you'll get the accurate information. You don't need to overwrite it. You don't need to write your own implementation. In that sense, just by writing these 4 lines, I get an init function, I get str, I get repr. Okay. Now let's talk about some of the different cases that may happen when we use something like this. Let's try to instantiate without any parameters. What will happen? It will give us an error because it is saying init is missing two required parameters, which means it generates the init automatically with the two parameters. Number of variables I have given in the class, it will take it as part of the init. We can overcome this by giving default values. So I have given default values over here 11 and not available. And now we can instantiate a class like this. Okay, you can see the str of it also. Now, what will happen if only one variable is defaulted? We can instantiate by using only one parameters. We can give two also, right? Let's say I give available. This is also okay. And we can see the str. And this is what I have talked about. And we can see the str and even repr. Okay. Now, there is a question many people have asked me that can we have non-default member after the default member, which means if I do something like this. No, you can't, because in this case, just think about it. How will it determine that which variable should go where? Okay, Python will give you an error. Now the other question which is asked that do we need type annotations? Like in this particular case, Python is dynamically typed, right? We don't need to give it a type, right? Int or string. But do we need annotations because I am giving it in data classes? The answer is no. We can directly create variables without giving type annotations. So will this work? No, it will not. It will say invalid syntax, and now you will ask, oh, okay, I have just said that we don't need to give type annotations. Why it is giving me an error? The reason is that the type annotations are only for the viewer of the code to understand it in a better way. Python doesn't enforce that, which means we can give anything as a type. Python will take it. And we can create this instance variable with an integer and a floating point. You can see that there is no type and it is not enforced by Python, right? Now you will say that, okay, this is fine, but why I need to give something? Why can't I just ignore it? So the way to ignore it is by giving three dots. So in this case, you are telling the Python that, okay, I don't bother about it. I don't want to specify this. Let the user understand by looking into the code. Now this decorator takes multiple parameters, which means if you do not want init function to be generated automatically, you do not want REPR to be generated automatically, you can make it false. Okay. Now, if you want to instantiate like this, you will be able to do this because init is not generated. Okay. If init is true, believe me, you will not be able to do it. Okay, because the init function will be generated. Now false, init is not generated, you will be able to do it, which means the instance variable will not be coming to you automatically. So even if you have declared info id, info description, it will not be generated automatically. Okay. And wrapper will also not be generated if we don't, say wrapper equal to true. In here, REPR is false. If I make it true, you can see that I can get the REPR. Okay, right now no instance variables are there. That's why it's giving me an error. Now REPR is true, which means it should have generated, some function for it, but it is not because when it is instantiated, it is having no instance variable, which means, if you go ahead and create an instance variable, carinfo.test equal to test, okay, and then you run REPR, what will happen? Many of you might tempt to say that, okay, now REPR will say value of test. It will not, because REPR is generated. It is generated at the time you use this decorator in your class. And at the time of generation, those variables were not there, right? Now, if you see the dict representation, you'll get test, but not with the REPR, because REPR will take care of it and str will take care of it only while you are interpreting this particular piece of code with your decorator. So if you add some instance variables later on, it will not be able to add that. Okay, so that's all about basics of data classes in Python. I do hope and believe that I was able to explain things in a decent possible way. Thank you all. Thanks for watching. We will meet again. Until the next time we meet, good day, goodbye. You take care.